Welcome to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm Luis Fernandez. On Monday, court procedures began for the trial of 21-year-old Issiah Ross. He's accused of murdering two teens in Orange County back in 2022. Ross is charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder in the deaths of 14-year-old Lyric Woods and 18-year-old Devin Clark. The two were reported missing in September of 2022. Their bodies were found off of a remote ATV path in Orange County. WRAL News reporter Monica Casey was in court this morning and joins us now. Monica, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So let's get started just with about this case. Can you tell me about this case in general, starting with Woods and Clark's death in 2022?
Yeah, absolutely. This goes back a long way, all the way to September of 2022. Lyric Woods at that time was 14 years old, and Devin Clark was 18 years old. She was a student at Cedar Ridge High School in Hillsborough, and Clark was a student at Eastern Alamance over in Mebane. Their families reported them missing, and soon after, their bodies were found about 3 miles away from Woods' home on 2 men who were out on 4-wheelers, and the 2 of them had been shot to death. Now, we have learned the firearm used in this case belonged to Clark's father, and the autopsy shows that both of those victims, Woods and Clark, were shot multiple times, including both being shot in the back. Prosecutors say they were trying to flee. Issiah Ross was 17 years old at the time in 2022. He is now charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. He's now 21 years old, and he's being tried as an adult in Orange County Court. That case began today.
2022, 3 years later, he pleaded not guilty. Now, today, his trial is officially beginning, going through the court procedures. So what happened in court this morning, Monica?
Yes, so today was all about pretrial hearings, really kind of getting their ducks in a row before the case goes to official trial with a jury seated and all of that. So today, the state offered Ross a plea deal that they have offered him before. It would have reduced his charges from first to second degree murder with a minimum of 20 years of jail time for each of those charges served consecutively. So he could have agreed today to plead guilty to 2 counts of second degree murder and serve between 40 and 50 years in jail. He opted to reject that plea deal in court today, which is his right, and he also opted not to issue any kind of counter offer to prosecutors in this case. The judge spent a bit of time walking him through that process, really making sure he did not want to accept that plea deal and that he didn't want to offer anything else. And he said multiple times that he did not. So that decision means this trial will move forward as scheduled and as planned. Jury selection will start Tuesday morning.
This was a high-profile case at the time of the murders back in 2022, and chances are this trial is going to be pretty similar to that. How would you just describe what the atmosphere was like in court for those who aren't able to be there?
Yeah, this is a really high-profile trial. It's a case of with a lot of interest from people in this community. The victims were well known in their communities. I think we can expect to see their families in the courtroom. The court had a decent number of people there today, even just for the pre-trial hearings. So I think there's going to be a lot of interest in this case, a lot of media coverage as well.
What comes next in all of this? What are the next steps?
So while today was focused on setting the stage, attorneys figuring out what kind of evidence will be shown and that kind of thing, tomorrow we'll start jury selection. That starts at 9:30 in the morning on Tuesday in Orange County, and we just don't know how long that will take. It could take the morning and afternoon of Tuesday. It could take the rest of the week. It really just depends on how the attorneys decide on the jurors. We know testimony will start after after a jury is seated. We did learn in court today that the victim's parents and step-parents will be testifying in this case. That's important because in some cases the witnesses are sequestered. They're not allowed to listen to the rest of the trial in the courtroom, for example. These parents and step-parents will be allowed to be in the courtroom during testimony of other witnesses, which is a little bit different than what you might see in some other trials with some other witnesses. The district attorney who's over this case told the judge today in terms of what those parents and step-parents will be testifying about, will be talking about the last time that they saw their children and how they learned that their children had died.
So, Monica, you talked a little bit about, the larger crowd at the courtroom, the impact of these murders on the community there in Orange County, in the surrounding area. So one other thing I wanted to bring up here when we talk about impact already is that after Lyric Woods and Devin Clark's death, North Carolina passed a new law. Remember, it's been 3 years now since their deaths. What does this law do?
Yeah, so while this case has a lot of interest, obviously, in Orange County and in the Triangle in general, its reach has already extended statewide. So these 2 teenagers died in September of 2022. This new law took effect in December of 2023. Ross was 17 years old when these murders happened, and at the time, police filed a juvenile petition. That's essentially what they do when they are seeking to charge a person, but the wording is a bit different for a juvenile. Police had information that Ross had fled to Delaware, but because of the laws around juvenile offenders at the time, they were not allowed to release his name or photo, even though they were looking for him for charges as serious as first-degree murder. So now this kind of case can go straight to a grand jury, and that lets it move much faster than it used to, where a juvenile court probable cause hearing was required. This new law also mandates all juveniles charged with felonies have to get a mental health assessment, and if it's necessary, they have to be assigned a care team. The law requires any 13 to 15-year-olds who are accused of first-degree murder to be tried in adult rather than juvenile court if they've been indicted by a grand jury or if a judge finds probable causes. And under this law, 16 and 17-year-olds can now be charged as adults for violent crimes, including things like armed robbery. And so this law essentially loosens some of the really strict privacy protections around juvenile names and identities when it comes to crime. When this law was passed, we spoke with lawmakers and retired judges about why it was needed, why we would loosen up some of these privacy restrictions. And they essentially told us here at WRAL that it's a response to an increase of violent crime involving and perpetrated by juveniles among each other. And so that's kind of one of the reasons. This also has implications for Austin Thompson and the Hedingham mass shooting as well.
Which is a trial that we have previewed previously here on the WRL Daily Download, and we'll have more as that begins at the beginning of February. But for now, jury selection in the Issiah Ross trial, like Monica said, begins at 9:30 on Tuesday. And for all the latest on this trial, you can be sure to visit WRAL.com and check out reporters like Monica who will be following this trial. That's WRAL News reporter Monica Casey. Monica, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm Luis Fernandez. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for listening to the WRAL Daily Download and for making us part of your morning routine. Another great way to get WRAL news is the Morning Briefing newsletter. It's a daily email with Triangle news, events, and headlines to help you get ready for the day. Sign up at WRAL.com/newsletter.